Do you hate playing Yu-Gi-Oh? Well, you should play Magic. It's a fun and very good game, and definitely better than Yu-Gi-Oh. All right, so if you want to get into Magic, I'd recommend Commander format or Modern format. Today we're going to be taking a look at Modern. This will be a Rakdos that is red and black deck that's fairly cheap, really easy to play, and can really help get you into Modern, and whether you're playing against your friends or just going to local tournaments, should suit you pretty well if you like this strategy. So let's start things off with our 1-drop. Now this deck is meant to play very fast. Ideally you kill your opponent by turn 5, maybe 6 at the latest, or else you just lose. You'll be trying to outpace your opponent as much as possible, but if you don't, you will just lose all of your card advantage because this deck plays very irresponsibly. So we're playing Fanatical Firebrand, very good. It's a 1-drop with haste, and it's also a nice utility just for getting a little bit of extra damage in. And then we've got 4 copies of Vexing Devil. Now this card's really good. You can drop it on turn 1, and that's immediately 4 damage to them because very few people are actually going to let you keep this on the field. They can force you to sack it, but they take 4 damage, and they end up starting the game with 16 life, which is pretty big, especially when you're playing something as stupidly aggressive as this. 2 copies of Rakdos Cackler. This card isn't great, but you just need more 1-drops because of how quickly this deck is supposed to play. And then after that we move into the 2-drops, and this is the real meat of the deck right here. We got 4 copies of Spike Jester. This is Spike Jester Turbo right here. It's a 3/1 with haste for 2-drop. That's just amazing right there. Now, you can only play 4 copies, which is why we're also playing 10 copies. We're playing 3 copies of Diet Spike Jester, basically, and then 3 copies of Spike Jester's socially codependent cousin. It gets +1 as long as you control another multicolored permanent, in which case it also gains haste, which is pretty important, but you don't want to be dropping this early. Normally you want that just to be extra copies of Spike Jester once you run out. All right, now this is for later in the game, around turn 3 or 4, when you're trying to really solidify that final push. This just helps you get stuff out of the graveyard. Lesha, it's pretty good. And then Lizolda the Blood Witch. Gonna be doing this late game, 2 copies. And when I say late game, I mean turn 4. That's late game for you. You're just gonna be sacking creatures to try to draw cards and deal extra damage, try to get that final push, and also try to keep up in card advantage, because again, you will be just vomiting your hand out, and you will burn out of resources very quickly. And then here's our boss monster, Rakdos, Lord of Parties, of course. 6/6 with Flying and Trample for 4-drop. I mean, it's just great, especially for that final few turns. And then 2 copies of Firewheeler. Same reasoning there. All right, so you've got all these tiny creatures that you're trying to cast as quickly as possible. But how are you going to keep up with your opponent when they actually start summoning things? Well, kill spells. 4 copies of Lightning Bolt. And since we're only allowed to play 4 copies, got 4 copies of Incinerate, because it's basically just nerfed Lightning Bolt. And then the best kill spell, Terminate. This just wins you games. That's all I can say. It wins games. All right, and then the land base, I mean, this is kind of just up to you, really. So I've got, I think, 9 mountains and 7 swamps. Just because this deck is slightly more red heavy, wanted to make it a little more balanced, but there's a lot of cards that just kind of suited this deck better that were red. And then you'll want some dual lands, just whichever you're able to really get your hands on, but I would really recommend check lands or reveal lands. Those tend to be the best. Just because you really don't want to be losing tempo by playing lands that come into the battlefield tapped. Shock lands are also an option if that's what you want to go for, because you're not really worrying about your own life total too much. You're just trying to just move as quickly as possible. All right, remember kids, the name of the game, just put down a bunch of little guys, attack them as quickly as possible before they can actually get established. Once they do, keep them at bay with your kill spells, and then make one big final push. And also, Fanatico Flamigrero. I've been Tom, with Tom's TCG. Thank you for watching.